Every single night, 50 million Americans wake up to use the bathroom. Not once, but 2, 3, sometimes 5 times. And here is what nobody will tell you at your doctor's appointment. In 80% of those cases, your bladder is completely healthy. It is not the problem. All those pills, supplements, and herbal remedies you've been taking for your prostate or your bladder, they're targeting the wrong organ entirely. Subscribe to Dr. William Lee right now and hit that like button. It takes 5 seconds. We're working toward 1,000 subscribers, and we're building this channel on one simple principle. The system makes money when you stay sick, not when you get better. What I'm about to tell you, you will never hear from anyone in a clinic waiting room. It's 3 in the morning. Your apartment is completely quiet. You've finally sunk into that deep, heavy sleep, the good kind. And then the signal hits. Faint at first, somewhere at the edge of your awareness. You try to roll over, try to think about something else, but the pressure builds. You throw back the covers, drop your feet onto the cold floor, and shuffle to the bathroom like a zombie. You squint against the light, do what you came to do, and climb back into bed. But sleep is gone. Your mind races. Work, the mortgage, the kids. You lie there for an hour, finally drift off, and it happens again. Second time tonight. You wake up in the morning, shattered, heavy-headed, and pour coffee into yourself all day just to function. I see this in the eyes of hundreds of patients who walk into my practice, and almost every one of them says the same thing. Doc, what can you do? It's just old age. Everybody gets up at night. Let me be direct with you. That is a lie. It is a dangerous myth, and it needs to be shattered right now. Getting up at night to urinate is not normal. Not at 40, not at 50, not at 70. A healthy body is built differently. At night, your brain produces a specific hormone called antidiuretic hormone, also known as vasopressin. Think of it as a factory manager sending a memo to your kidneys. Shut down the night shift, concentrate the urine, cut back on volume, run on economy mode. That mechanism is exactly what lets a healthy person sleep 7 or 8 hours straight without a single interruption. When that mechanism breaks down, it is not a minor inconvenience. In medicine, the condition is called nocturia, simply meaning repeated urination during the night. And it is a real diagnosis. If you get up once a night, that is a warning signal. If you get up twice or more, that is an alarm going off. Because every single time you wake up, your pulse jumps, your blood pressure spikes, and you interrupt the deep sleep phase. The phase where your brain clears out metabolic waste, neurons repair themselves, and your heart truly rests. Years of losing this phase is a direct path to hypertension, depression, and accelerated brain aging. Clinical research shows that nocturia stresses the cardiovascular system faster than smoking. That is not an exaggeration. That is data from published clinical studies. Now, here is the most important thing I want you to hear right now. When patients come to me with this complaint, most have already decided they know the cause. Men say, "Doctor, it's my prostate, I'm sure of it." Women say it's menopause, prolapse, chronic bladder infections. They've been drinking diuretic herbal teas, taking antibiotics, buying advertised supplements for urological health. They've restricted their water intake so aggressively that their mouth goes dry by evening. They cut out tea after 6 p.m., go to bed parched, and still wake up at 3 a.m. Why? Because they're fighting the symptom, not the cause. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your home's fire alarm goes off in the middle of the night. What do most people do? They tape over the sensor to make the noise stop. The correct response is to find where the fire is. That is exactly how most people treat their nighttime bathroom trips. Your bladder is the sensor. It is simply signaling that something is happening somewhere else in your body. In 80% of cases, the bladder is perfectly healthy. It is doing exactly what it is supposed to do, emptying what gets put into it. The problem is not the reservoir. The problem is who is filling it during the night and why. And the answer to that question may genuinely shock you. The culprit is your legs and your heart. But before we get into the mechanism, I need to say something as a physician with 15 years of clinical experience. There are symptoms that should send you straight to a doctor, not to a video. Know these. First, blood in your urine without pain. Remember that combination. If there is pain and blood, it is most likely a kidney stone or acute bladder infection. Miserable, but not immediately life-threatening. But if you see dark red or brown urine, blood clots in the toilet bowl, and nothing hurts, that is one of the most serious early signs of bladder cancer in men and women over 50. That finding is a direct indication for a cystoscopy, a procedure where a doctor looks inside the bladder with a small camera. Do not wait. Second, bone pain combined with sudden weight loss. If your nighttime trips are accompanied by aching in your pelvis or lower back and you have lost 10 to 20 pounds over 2 months without dieting, that pattern is a warning for malignancy. Third, acute urinary retention. You feel the urge desperately. You strain, your lower abdomen aches, and nothing comes out. That is an emergency. You need a catheter placed urgently. If none of those apply to you, you can breathe. You are going to be fine. But the quality of that life is worth protecting. And to do that, we need to understand exactly what kind of malfunction is happening in your system. In urology, nighttime urinary problems break down into 3 fundamentally different types. The treatment for each is different, and what helps one type can actively make another worse. Type 1 is global polyuria, producing too much urine overall. You go frequently both day and night, and each time the volume is large. If you collected everything you produced in 24 hours, you would measure 3 to 4 liters. There are usually 2 causes. First, you are simply drinking enormous amounts of fluid, walking around all day with a water bottle, thinking more is always better. The physics is simple. Whatever goes in must come out. The second cause is diabetes, either type 2 diabetes, where glucose pulls water with it, or central diabetes insipidus, which involves a hormone disruption in the brain. Urine in this type is usually pale, nearly odorless, and you go just as often during the day as at night. This type needs an endocrinologist and a blood sugar test. Type 2 is nocturnal polyuria, the most insidious type, and the one found in 60 to 70% of people over 50. The picture looks like this. During the day, you live completely normally. You work, you run errands, you visit the bathroom every 4 or 5 hours. Nothing hurts, nothing burns. But the moment you lie down, the nightmare begins. 3 or 4 trips per night, each time a full bladder, large volume. In the morning you look and you genuinely cannot figure it out. You had half a glass of kefir last night. Where did 1.5 liters of fluid come from? This is classic nocturnal polyuria. Your kidneys have switched their filtration activity to nighttime hours. They run at half capacity during the day and at 200% at night. We will unpack why in detail in a moment. The critical point: if this is your type, the bladder has nothing to do with it. Treating the bladder is useless. Type 3 is a reservoir problem. Here it is the opposite. Urges are frequent, sudden, and urgent. It feels like you will not make it. You rush to the bathroom, sit down, and almost nothing comes out. A few drops. 40 minutes later, the same urge hits, and again, almost nothing. The problem here is the bladder itself. It has lost the ability to stretch to a normal capacity, or its nerve signals have become hypersensitive. The trigger fires at 50 milliliters of urine, even though the normal capacity before urgency should be 200 to 300 milliliters. This occurs with benign prostatic enlargement in men, overactive bladder in women, chronic bladder infection, or bladder and ureteral stones. So to lock that in, frequent and large volume both day and night, global polyuria. Fine during the day, flooding at night, nocturnal polyuria. Urgent and frequent urges, but tiny output, a reservoir problem. Identify your type. Keep it in mind. Now I want to tell you about one of my patients. I will call him Anatoly. 54 years old, solid, self-sufficient man, not a complainer, only comes to see a doctor when he is desperate. And he was desperate. He walked in with a thick folder of paperwork, bladder ultrasound, PSA blood test, a stack of prescriptions. He told me right away, "Doc, it's my prostate, or God forbid cancer. Do something, I'm losing my mind." He laid out his timeline. First 1 trip a night, ignored it, then 2, then 3. For the last 6 months, 4 or 5 times per night. Imagine that torture. You finally fall asleep, and you are yanked out of it again and again. Anatoly had done what the internet and advertisers tell you to do. Since he was running to the bathroom, his prostate must be guilty. He went to the pharmacy, bought the marketed supplements, the suppositories, the herbal blends. Then he reasoned, if I am producing so much urine, I need to drink less. He imposed a strict liquid ban after 6 in the evening. Not a drop of water, not a cup of tea, not even a piece of fruit. He went to bed every night with maddening thirst, his mouth completely dry, and still at 2 a.m. he got up and released half a liter. At 4 a.m. another half liter. Where was it coming from? He had not drunk a thing. When he sat in front of me with eyes red from sleep deprivation, I looked at his lab work. PSA, the prostate cancer marker, was completely normal. He had mild first-degree benign prostate enlargement, but that degree does not produce this clinical picture. His bladder was clean, no stones. From a urological standpoint, he was nearly healthy, yet this man was not sleeping and was suffering. So I stopped asking about how he urinated. I started asking about how he lived. Any shortness of breath? A little, I guess. When I climb to the 3rd floor, I have to stop and catch my breath, but I smoked for 20 years, only quit a year ago. Does his ring feel tight by evening? Does the elastic of his socks leave a groove on his leg? Yes, he said. When I take my socks off, there is an actual indentation in the skin. But doesn't everyone have that? And right then the picture clicked into place for me. I told him something that stunned him. Anatoly, throw out the prostate pills. You don't need a urologist. I'm referring you to a cardiologist and a sleep specialist. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. What does my heart have to do with it? I'm running to the bathroom, not clutching my chest, but he listened. And here is what the specialists found. The cardiologist identified early-stage heart failure, hidden with no dramatic symptoms. During the day, Anatoly's heart was working at its limit. It could not fully circulate his blood volume, and fluid was pooling in his body tissues, primarily in his legs. And the sleep specialist, a doctor who diagnoses sleep disorders, found obstructive sleep apnea, brief, repeated pauses in breathing during sleep. The person snores, stops, then startles with a gasp. Sleep apnea on its own disrupts the production of antidiuretic hormone and forces the kidneys to work more actively during nighttime hours. When Anatoly was taking prostate supplements, he was trying to fix a leaking faucet while a pipe had burst in the basement. Let me now walk you through the physics of what was happening in his body, because it is happening in the majority of you watching this. Picture a plastic bottle half filled with water. When it stands upright, the water sits at the bottom. When you lay it on its side, the water distributes evenly. Your body works the same way. 16 hours a day you are vertical, standing, sitting. Gravity pulls everything downward. Blood, lymphatic fluid, the fluid between your cells, all of it toward your feet and ankles. When we are young, our blood vessels behave like strong, elastic tubes. The valves inside our veins hold blood firmly and do not let it pool below. The muscles in our legs, when we walk, contract rhythmically and act as a pump, pushing blood upward against gravity. But with age, or if we lead sedentary lives, this mechanism weakens. Veins expand, valves start to leak, and the muscle pump shuts down because we are sitting at a desk or on a couch. Fluid begins to seep out through the vessel walls into the soft tissue surrounding them. In the loose connective tissue of the legs, up to 1.5 liters of water can quietly accumulate. 1.5 liters, that is 3 large mugs of tea, and you may not even notice it. The sock left a slight groove, so what? Your kidneys do not see that water. It is switched out of the bloodstream. The kidneys filter only what is circulating in the blood. Now comes the evening. Anatoly gets home from work, has a large dinner, often with something salty, a pickle, cured meat, a spoonful of mayonnaise, and sits in front of the television from 7 to 11 at night. 4 hours, his legs hanging down. Gravity keeps working. Fluid keeps accumulating in the tissues of his calves. His heart is moving slowly, low pulse, because he is simply sitting still. Then he turns off the television and lies down. And here is where it gets critical. His legs rise to the same level as his kidneys and his heart. Gravity no longer holds the fluid down in his legs. All that fluid, the water that collected over 12 hours in the sponge of his tissues, begins rapidly returning to the bloodstream. It is reabsorbed into the veins and rushes in a powerful wave toward the center of the body. The volume of circulating blood rises sharply. Imagine that someone injected an extra liter of fluid directly into your circulatory system within a single hour. That is not a metaphor. That is precisely what happens to your body every night when you have hidden edema in your legs. And at this moment, the conductor of this nighttime concert steps onto the stage, your heart, specifically a small but powerful hormone with a sophisticated name, atrial natriuretic peptide, also called ANP. Listen carefully because this is the central mechanism of this entire discussion. When the returning fluid from the legs reaches the heart, the right atrium begins to fill and stretch beyond its normal volume. The heart recognizes that the system is overloaded, that pressure is rising, so it releases ANP into the bloodstream, a chemical telegram to the kidneys. The message is brief. Dump the excess fluid immediately, or I will fail. This hormone blocks aldosterone, the hormone responsible for retaining water in your body, and your kidneys shift into emergency mode. They filter the blood at an accelerated rate, expelling water and sodium to protect the heart from overload. The result is predictable. Within an hour of lying down, your bladder is full. You get up, go to the bathroom, come back. But the fluid from your legs has not finished mobilizing. The process continues. 2 hours later, full bladder again. And the cycle repeats until morning. That is why Anatoly, who had not drunk a drop of water since 6 in the evening, was running to the bathroom all night. He was quite literally drinking through his legs. His legs had stored 1.5 liters of fluid during the day, and at night all of that fluid funneled through his kidneys. No prostate supplement, no herbal blend could stop it, because those interventions were targeting the completely wrong organ. Treating your bladder with pills when the cause is in your heart and gravity is exactly the same as taping over a fire alarm sensor. Your body is trying to save you and you are trying to stop it. Now, how to check whether this is actually happening in you? No MRI, no complex lab work. All you need are your own hands and a few minutes of attention. Test 1. Locating hidden fluid. Sit comfortably, expose your lower leg, the section between your knee and your ankle. Find your shin bone, the hard surface along the front of your leg that has no muscle covering it. Place the pad of your thumb against that bone, roughly 4 to 6 inches above your ankle. Press firmly and hold for 10 to 15 seconds. The pressure should be definite. Remove your thumb and run the pad of another finger across the same spot. What do you feel? If the skin immediately springs back smooth and flat, no significant edema. But if your thumb left a pit, a dent that does not fill back in for several seconds, that you can see and feel, you have just located a hidden reservoir of fluid. Even if your leg does not look swollen from the outside, that pit is evidence that your tissues are saturated with water, and at night all of that water will move through your kidneys. Test 2. A simplified urine diary. Take 1 day off and do some simple measurements. Get any container with volume markings. A measuring cup will do. Record your urine output separately, daytime and nighttime, including the very first urination immediately after waking in the morning. Add the numbers. If your nighttime urine output exceeds 33%, more than 1/3 of your total daily output, that is officially called nocturnal polyuria. A simple example. Over 24 hours, you produce 1,500 milliliters. If 500 milliliters or more of that came at night, This is your situation. Your kidneys have inverted their schedule because of edema or a hormonal disruption, not because of your bladder, not because of your prostate, because fluid is redistributing incorrectly through your body. If both tests come back positive, the pit on your leg stays, and at night you are producing large amounts of pale, dilute urine, we can relax. Your bladder is most likely completely fine. You do not need surgery, expensive procedures, or lifelong medication. Work on your circulation and your daily routine, and that is exactly what comes next. You might ask, fine, I understand about the legs and gravity, but I also eat. Can food affect this process? Absolutely, in ways that will genuinely surprise you. There are foods that act like a delayed switch on your kidneys, programming them to do most of their work at night, and you are probably eating them at dinner, sincerely believing they are harmless or even healthy. When I ask patients what they eat in the evenings, most say something like, "Doctor, I watch what I eat. No pickled herring, no salty snacks. I'm being careful." Then it turns out dinner was a sandwich with cheese and some cured sausage, or hot dogs with buckwheat, or crackers and cream cheese before bed. Write this down somewhere, you will see it. Hidden salt. We have been trained to think of salt as something that comes out of a shaker, but 80% of the salt most people consume comes from processed and packaged food. Cheese, cured meats, sausages, mayonnaises, canned goods, bread. 100 grams of ordinary hard cheese contains as much sodium as an entire bag of potato chips. You do not taste that sharp saltiness. It is masked by fat and flavor compounds, but it is there. Here is how it works against you overnight. You eat a cheese sandwich at 7 in the evening. As sodium enters your blood, your body immediately activates its defense. Too much salt? We need to dilute this. And it begins holding on to every molecule of water it can. This is osmotic pressure at work. In the evening, you are not running to the bathroom. The salt is keeping water locked inside your blood vessels and tissues. But overnight, your kidneys detect this accumulated sodium and begin actively excreting it. And sodium acts like a magnet. It pulls water behind it. To flush out 1 gram of excess sodium, the kidneys must run a significant volume of fluid through themselves. The result? You wake up in the middle of the night not because you drank too much, you are eliminating last night's cheese. The second enemy is evening sugar. I had a cup of tea with a couple of cookies, a small apple before bed. What's the harm? It's vitamins. It's natural. Let me explain the biochemistry. Simple carbohydrates in the evening cause a rapid spike in blood glucose. Your pancreas fires off a burst of insulin. Insulin, beyond its primary role in managing blood sugar, signals your kidneys to retain sodium and water. First comes retention, then 2 to 3 hours later, right around the time you have fallen asleep, blood sugar drops sharply. What follows is a rebound, and your kidneys switch to active fluid excretion. Beyond this, if you have even a degree of insulin resistance, a state where your body's cells no longer respond efficiently to insulin, and this affects a substantial portion of people over 40 and usually produces no obvious symptoms, elevated blood sugar acts as an osmotic diuretic. Sugar itself pulls water out of your cells and into the urine. You get the biological equivalent of a water pill simply by eating a cluster of grapes or a slice of watermelon before bed. The third false friend is alcohol. Many men tell me at appointments, "Doc, I have a small glass of brandy or a beer before bed. It helps me sleep harder. I don't even hear the urge to go." This is one of the most widespread forms of self-deception I encounter, and here is why. Alcohol does help you fall asleep faster. It acts as a sedative and slows down the central nervous system. But it is simultaneously one of the most powerful blockers of antidiuretic hormone, the vasopressin we discussed at the start. Remember the factory manager's signal to the kidneys. Slow down, work in economy mode, concentrate the urine. Alcohol cancels that signal entirely. Under its influence, the brain simply does not send the order. Your kidneys run at full filtration speed with no restriction applied. Yes, the sedative effect of alcohol may allow you to sleep through the first urge. The bladder fills up and you do not wake, but it keeps filling until the second urge becomes painful and impossible to ignore. And your sleep quality throughout the night is profoundly poor, with no deep restorative slow-wave sleep at all. You wake up completely wrecked and with a bursting bladder. The outcome is worse than if you had not had a drink at all. Now let us talk about what actually helps. The foods that protect and calm the bladder. First on my list, raw pumpkin seeds. And I want to be precise about this. Not roasted, not salted, not sugar-coated, raw green pumpkin seeds. This is one of the most genuinely underrated urological tools in everyday nutrition. And I say that not as someone reading from an advertisement, but as a clinician who sees the outcome in actual patients. Pumpkin seeds contain zinc and magnesium in highly bioavailable form, meaning in the form your body absorbs most efficiently. Magnesium relaxes smooth muscle, including the detrusor, which is the name for the muscular wall of the bladder, helping it expand to a larger volume before triggering the urge to void. The seeds also contain phytosterols, plant-based compounds that strengthen the pelvic floor. In men, they support prostate tissue. In women, they help with pelvic organ support. A handful, about 30 grams of raw pumpkin seeds daily. That is the cheapest and most effective bladder health habit you can build. Second, cranberry. Not bottled cranberry juice cocktail from the store. That product typically contains more sugar than soda, and sugar is on our enemies list. What you need is the actual berry, frozen or fresh, or a standardized cranberry extract from a pharmacy. Cranberries contain compounds called proanthocyanidins, molecules that prevent bacteria from adhering to the inner lining of the bladder. Even in people without a current acute infection, many adults over 40 harbor a low-grade background bacterial presence in the bladder that chronically irritates nerve endings. The bladder becomes hypersensitive. A small amount of urine arrives and it screams, "Empty me now." Cranberry reduces that chronic background irritation and calms the lining. Add a handful to oatmeal or to unsweetened tea. Third, adequate dietary fiber. The connection here is purely mechanical, and I will keep it simple. Chronic constipation means a chronically bloated, gas-filled colon pressing against your bladder. They share the same pelvic real estate, and space is limited. An overloaded colon behaves like an aggressive neighbor. It pushes and compresses your bladder constantly. A bladder squeezed from outside signals fullness even when it is barely a quarter full. Vegetables, cabbage, greens, zucchini, bran, these regulate bowel function. An empty colon at bedtime gives your bladder room to expand properly while you sleep. It can fill to a reasonable volume before it needs attention, and it will not bother you ahead of schedule. Practical nutrition summary. Eliminate hidden salt in the evening. Remove cheese, cured meats, and condiments from dinner. Eliminate evening sugar. No fruit, baked goods, or sweetened drinks after 6. Put down the nightcap of beer or spirits. Add a handful of raw pumpkin seeds during the day and a small portion of unsweetened cranberry. Anatoly did only that. He replaced his dinner of sausage and cheese with a vegetable and chicken salad and cut out the evening tea with cookies. Just from that one change, he eliminated 1 nighttime bathroom trip out of 5. Progress, but not victory. Why? Because food is the foundation. It changes the biochemistry. But if your venous valves are failing and your vessels have lost their elasticity, nutrition alone cannot override the physics of fluid. We need heavier tools, and this brings us to the most practical part of today's discussion. I want to show you what I myself do every evening, the same routine that became the final turning point for Anatoly, a simple 3-part daily protocol: morning, daytime, and evening. 5 minutes total per day. I call it the Golden Protocol. Part 1. Morning. Starting the pump. It begins not in the evening, but the moment you open your eyes. When you get out of bed, do not head straight for the coffee. Stop for 30 seconds. After a night of rest, your lymphatic fluid has thickened and pooled. We need to move it from the very start of the day so that by evening your legs are primed and ready, not prone to pooling fluid. Do what is known as McCullough's vibrational exercise. Stand upright, feet shoulder width apart. Rise up onto your toes just 1 to 2 centimeters, and then let your heels drop back down to the floor with a light, firm impact. You should feel a mild vibration traveling from your calves up through your thighs and into your abdomen. Repeat this 30 times at roughly 1 drop per second. That is 30 seconds of your morning. What is happening physiologically? Inside your veins are small valves, folds of tissue that prevent blood from flowing backward and pooling downward. With age and inactivity, these valves can become sluggish and begin to fail. The rhythmic vibration of this exercise literally shakes them back into action, encouraging blood to move upward against gravity. That is the best prevention for evening leg swelling, and it starts at 7 in the morning. If standing is difficult for you, painful knees, back problems, there is a floor version. Without getting out of bed, raise both your arms and legs straight up and shake them with small, rapid movements, like a beetle flipped on its back. Yes, it looks ridiculous, but it activates lymphatic drainage within 60 seconds, and the clinical result is entirely real. Part 2. Daytime, the waterfall method. One firm rule: picture a graph of when you drink fluids throughout the day. For most people, it looks like a hill with the peak in the evening. They come home from work and pour 3 cups of tea back to back. We need to shift that hill far to the left. 70% of your total daily fluid intake should happen before 4 in the afternoon. A glass of water immediately after waking, a water bottle at your desk during work, tea and soup at lunch. After 4, we turn the tap down, not off. Thirst is dangerous. It thickens the blood and raises clotting risk. But after 4, only small sips as needed to relieve dryness. And one practical sodium control step: remove the salt shaker from your table entirely. Salt food only in the pot during cooking. That single act reduces daily sodium consumption by 20 to 30% without changing what you eat. Part 3. Evening, the critical move. Here is the thing worth watching this entire video for. Approximately 1 to 1.5 hours before bed, while you are watching a series, reading a book, or simply resting, do the exercise I call the lazy elevation. Lie down on the sofa or on the floor. Place your legs up on the armrest of the couch, the back of a chair, or simply prop them against the wall. One requirement only: your heels must be higher than the level of your heart. An angle of roughly 45 degrees works well. There is no need to raise your legs perfectly vertical. That strains the neck. Just elevated, comfortable, supported. Stay in that position for 15 to 20 minutes. You can read, scroll your phone, listen to a podcast. What happens during those 20 minutes? The physics we discussed at the start. Gravity now works for you instead of against you. It pushes fluid from the sponge of your lower leg tissue back into the bloodstream. Blood flows toward the kidneys. Your heart receives the signal of increased volume and releases ANP. Your kidneys shift into active filtration mode. Your bladder begins to fill, but you are awake. You are sitting in control of your evening, fully alert. 30 to 40 minutes after you finish the exercise, you will feel the need to urinate. You will go and you will release 300 to 400 milliliters, the exact volume that would otherwise have woken you at 3 in the morning. You understand the principle. You are wringing out your legs deliberately before you sleep. You are giving your kidneys their workload in the evening while you are awake, so that at night they can rest. If you have pronounced visible swelling in your legs, add graduated compression stockings. Do not sleep in them. Put on first-grade compression knee highs when you get home from work in the evening, and wear them until your shower before bed. They simply prevent fluid from pooling in the lower leg tissue during the evening hours. One final piece: strengthening the valve. When you are already in bed, lights out, eyes closed, do 20 to 30 repetitions of Kegel exercises. But 90% of people do this incorrectly. They squeeze their buttocks, tighten their abdomen, clench their thighs. That accomplishes nothing. How to do it correctly? Imagine you are trying to prevent passing gas, or imagine pulling your perineum, the region between your legs, upward, like an elevator rising from the ground floor to the 5th. Your abdomen must remain completely soft, buttocks relaxed. Only the pelvic floor works, the internal muscle group invisible from outside. Contract, hold for 3 seconds, slowly release. 20 to 30 repetitions. This exercise sends a signal through the nerve endings of the pelvic floor directly to your brain. Muscles toned, valve holds, the system can rest. The neurogenic overactivity of the bladder, the state where it fires an alarm at every small sensation, decreases. The bladder stops panicking at minimal urine volumes and begins operating in a normal, calibrated mode. That is the complete protocol. Morning, 30 heel drops. Daytime, 70% of fluids consumed before 4. Evening, 15 minutes legs elevated, then bathroom, then lie down and do the elevator with your pelvic floor. Anatoly started this with undisguised skepticism. Doc, what kind of nonsense is this? Legs up the wall? Are you serious? 1 week later, he came back and said quietly, almost not believing himself, I woke up once near morning. Once, not 5 times. After 1 more month of consistent practice, he was sleeping through the night. His kidneys stopped running a night shift because he was giving them their work in the evening at a time that suited him. His cardiologist noted at the next visit that the swelling in his legs had improved substantially. His heart was working with noticeably less strain. This method works reliably because it is built on physiology, not on wishful thinking. It is built on physics, biochemistry, and neuroscience. It requires exactly one thing: consistency. This is not a pill you swallow and forget about. You do this every day, but that is precisely what makes it genuinely powerful. Now, your age matters here more than you might think. The fluid redistribution mechanism I described becomes progressively more pronounced as the venous system ages. Venous valve competence decreases, vascular wall elasticity diminishes, and cardiac reserve narrows. Research consistently shows that in people over 50, nocturnal polyuria driven by peripheral fluid mobilization occurs roughly 3 times more often than in those under 40. How old are you? Write it in the comments. I want to see which age group makes up the majority of our viewers, because it will directly shape what I cover in future videos. So let me give you your takeaway. A concrete 5-step plan for tonight. Step 1. Do the thumb test on your shin bone right now. Press and check whether a pit remains. Step 2. On your next day off, measure your total urine output and calculate what fraction occurred at night. Step 3. Remove the salt shaker from your table tonight. Replace your dinner of processed meat and cheese with something without hidden sodium. Step 4. 1 hour before bed, lie down and put your legs up on the back of your couch or against the wall for 15 minutes. Step 5. Before sleep, do 20 to 30 correct Kegel repetitions. Only the pelvic floor moves, everything else is relaxed, and if the pit in your leg stayed after the test, if you notice shortness of breath climbing a flight of stairs, if your socks leave grooves in your skin by evening, do not go to a urologist first. Go to a cardiologist and a vascular specialist. That is the critical path. Your body is not broken. Your bladder is not your enemy. It is a signal light. Now you know how to turn it off, by addressing the cause, not by smashing the bulb. I'm Dr. William Lee, and I've spent 15 years watching what happens when people treat the alarm instead of the fire. Most of the time, the damage was entirely preventable. The protocol I just described requires no prescription, no procedure, no money beyond a pair of compression stockings. It requires only the understanding of how your body actually works and the discipline to use that knowledge. Your doctor is not going to walk you through this at your next appointment. There is no revenue in it, and there is no time on a 12-minute office visit to explain fluid mechanics and pelvic floor neurology. That is what this channel exists for. Subscribe to Dr. William Lee, hit the like button, and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Every person who subscribes makes it more likely that the next person who needs this information actually finds it. The healthcare system profits from managing your symptoms indefinitely. I profit from you not needing me anymore. Subscribe if that difference matters to you.